What is up? I'm Dr. Socks,
And I'm Dr. Jaron Jones.
and welcome to another episode of Quarantine Snacks Podcast, aka QSP.
Where you come for the snacks,
But
but
you
you leave
leave
with
some
so
soul
food,
food.
bruh.
Nice soft landing.
It's been so long, I didn't even know if we was gonna get that right. We didn't even rehearse that or practice that,
We
bro.
didn't. We usually do. It's just
Yeah.
been a minute. How long has it been, man? Like,
I don't have an understanding of time anymore due to extended quarantining. It's been at least a month.
at least a month.
Yeah.
Almost two.
Yeah.
Almost two.
Yeah.
It's not really like us.
No, a lot's happened. A lot's been going on. I think we're gonna talk about it.
We're gonna talk about it.
It's definitely been a challenge. It's been a challenge, but we do a good job of listening. For one another, to one another, checking in, be like, hey, real world stuff, we gotta knock it out. And we know we definitely want to remain as consistent as we can, but we also want to remain as authentic as we can. So when it works, we're gonna get on a more consistent basis if time, life, career allows. But
COVID,
we're happy.
Allows?
Yeah, COVID is interesting.
It is.
It's what birthed this podcast, and we're seeing it. Yeah.
From the loins of COVID. World's birth, Quarantine Snacks.
Is COVID a man or a woman?
Obviously a woman, a black woman. Easy. Wait, no. Wait, is COVID? I'm sorry. I thought you said it's Quarantine Snacks. Not a black woman. Sorry. No, Quarantine Snacks Podcast, if it had a gender, and it would be a black woman. Sorry. COVID is obviously not. This is going so good. This is going so good. How do you mute the video, audio? Where's the reset?
Like, yo, we just lost all of our.
No, Quarantine Snacks Podcast is birthed from black women. All good things come from black women. God is a black woman. But COVID, it might be birthed from 45. That's just I think without 45, there might not be such a mismanagement of pandemic. But it's definitely
yeah. That was not in our show notes, people.
It wasn't.
That was good. That was a nice little.
Yeah, that happened.
That was good. Yeah. COVID is boy. You was about to get roasted.
Oh yeah. Well deserved.
Yeah. So welcome back.
Welcome.
Partner, brother, missed you, not gonna lie, this has been therapeutic. And when, we get together and do this and do something creative, outside of our normal 9-to-5 working, rigmarole, big work.
How you spell it though?
Google. But yeah, we doing this is I've noticed not doing it. Things probably weren't as balanced in terms of, what you're required to do for work or, other things. And then that creative space that allows you to incorporate your full self and pull those things like we do from this podcast into the work that we do, which makes it unique. So I really appreciate us being able to connect and talk about some really good topics, man. This is kind of like it's a brotherhood podcast where, two brothers to one another. We're happy and we're singing and we're colored. If you didn't get that, this probably isn't your podcast. But
give me a high five.
Cut. But yeah, man. So this is good. I know we're kind of getting off topic. Let's get back on it. But yeah, I'm happy to be here, man. Happy to see you. And glad we're back for another episode, brother.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So speaking of having a foot in your mouth, What?
That's another podcast.
Today's podcast is Your Privilege Will Get You Punched. And we're going to talk in a little bit about where that was birthed from, where that came from. I did want to give a quick shout out, something we didn't talk about in the show notes. I don't know if you all noticed, but Jaren's audio is a little bit improved. Rather improved this episode. And see, this is what happens when you get friends from HBCU. See, we say it's not flexing, but what happens is this is like, one person will do something nice, and then you tell your homie, oh yeah, I see you out there. But then your homie low key takes it as like a little bit of like a challenge, a little ambition. And then they leapfrog you, and then they go, okay, what's up? I see you now. And it's like a little nudge, because before my audio was really good, Jaren's audio was okay. But then Jaren went out and bought a little microphone. If you see him on video today, he's big flexing. Look at this, it's a big flex. Big old microphone, sounds beautiful. I can hear him breathing. I can hear the cells inside his esophagus working together to produce the sounds, touching the voice box, giving it the shake that we all need to hear.
I'm realizing that this is how the Yin Yang Twins recorded the Whisper song. This exact mic was like, whisper in your ear. Let me tell you something you want to hear. No, this mic makes everything sound great. And they're not paying me, so I'm not telling you where the mic came from.
Facts.
Google it. But in response to what you were saying, yes, sometimes, it's like, I see you, brother. Meanwhile, you're like,
Yeah.
What you failed to mention is that I also sent you the links to the microphone and the stand. So, where sometimes you'd be like, oh, where you get this from? Oh, something slight,
That's true.
And you don't give your source.
That's true.
I gave you the source.
That's
so,
true.
I want people to be like, he just flexed and didn't even tell him where he got it from.
That's true.
Man. So, so everybody, it's okay to flex a little bit, but also give the sources. Sharing is caring now.
Sharing is caring.
Yeah. But
speaking of flexing, your shirt is dope. Talk to me about what's going on.
Yeah, man. Well, one thing we try to do is, support as many minority-owned businesses as we can. Designers. I don't want I want most of my stuff to come from dollars that are circulating within the Black community, because oftentimes it's not circulated through. So today, an apparel company, HBCU grad, you can find them on Instagram by that same hashtag. They have a line, HBCU grad, and they do a lot of work, not just apparel, but they do a lot of posts. They give you information about HBCUs as well. So definitely want to plug them for parents or those who have younger cousins, sisters, brothers. Send them to that page if they're thinking about where they want to go to college. They'll also be able to think about, HBCUs and learn more about it. I found out about HBCU grads apparel. It was on sale. I got this for a really good price through their partnership with HBCU Pride Nation. And that
cool.
Travis Jackson, went to school with him, young brother. He is everything when you think of HBCU Pride. So I have some of the hoodies that I wore in the Aggie Pride hoodie. A lot of the apparel that I get comes from HBCU Pride Nation. So shout out to Travis. He's out of Charlotte, North Carolina, Aggie born and bred. I see you, brother. And so thank you, because you were the segue for me to find out about this shirt. And so the way we put people on is great. Now, that Q looks familiar on your shirt.
Doesn't it?
What is this?
Man, this is a little something. I picked up. I actually sent the design to my sister. So my best friend's sister, Tina Sharp. She's the owner of Self-Inflicted Nonsense. It's a business that does a lot of apparel, a lot of shirts. And that Q, to your point, has a little bite at the top.
It looks familiar.
I think it might be a logo. I think it's.
We have a logo.
I think we have a logo. I think this is it. So the design was totally her idea. Again, the logo was done by Jason Dempsey, but the shirt, the design, didn't I send? I think I sent you one, right?
Yeah, but you did. You did. I gotta do more jumping jacks, and I'm gonna get it.
Jumping jack and then jump in the shirt.
Yeah, man. Bruh, you know how Beyonce is like, I think of like the Meg Thee Stallion, for my pain, you jump in these James. Every black man struggle for t-shirts
T-shirt.
and and joggers, bro.
There
It's
you
like
go.
black men thighs is something we do not talk about enough. But yeah, so, Jesus, not made for us. But okay, cool. But
Another
anyway, all right.
episode.
So,
Another
but yeah,
episode. So
dope shirt, brother. Dope
Tina
shirt.
does self-inflicted nonsense. Her IG is at sin self-inflicted. So we'll make sure to drop that info for you. You also might notice a little bit of that happening to my left. This is
King
a
T'Challa
little
for our
little
listeners.
T'Challa options. As you all know, we lost Chadwick Boseman in the past week. It's just kind of wild because I think on our maybe second episode, third episode, I had worn a pretty cool shirt. We were talking about Wakanda then, and then a couple weeks later, a friend of mine, Elizabeth Cooper, she was a social worker over at the VA, and just really, really awesome woman, awesome friend. She actually sent this in a note for me and Steph, just saying, kind of keep your heads up. I hope you guys are doing well. Sometimes you're a hero to come in. This is before Mr. Bozeman died. And then so I just decided to kind of whip out the beanie baby she sent us along. So thanks. She's
Man,
on Twitter at Cooper, KUEPPERLIZ. Cooper Lives. Yeah.
that's dope, man.
Good people, man. Good people.
Yeah, man. 2020 has been a challenge, man. So we'll delve in that a little bit more, man. But
We
even just
will.
thinking, the memory of Mr. Chadwick Boseman and just all he represented.
Mm-hmm.
Just an amazing person. I think I've told you a story before. My mother, she's an actress, and
Yeah.
so
Mm-hmm.
when she made a big jump to move to Atlanta to do more theater there. In the first week, they were doing casting calls for extras for the Black Panther. They
Yeah.
filmed it in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, she was there literally 3 days. I was like, Mom, I saw this thing on IG. They're looking for folks. You got to go. She went and waited like for 3 days worth of lines. And
Wow.
like, but she was casted,
Yeah.
uh, was in the
Yeah.
movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think she recorded for 6 weeks, man. It was
Crazy.
amazing. Built a whole studio. So she's on that waterfall. She was a part of the mining tribe.
Yeah.
They learned all kinds of songs and dances, but she
Wow.
always mentioned when she was, there's a lot of free time on the set.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are times where you just kind of, get to interact with the actors and actresses. And she always mentioned like he was such a nice, genuine person.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to see how life kind of surprises you in different ways. But I'm very thankful that he lived a very full life and passed a lot and left a lot for generations and for his name to live on forever.
Very
So
true. Very true.
man,
It's
yeah,
important as well to just, it might not be bad to just mention, like, how his legacy has inspired so many different things, right? We've talked about the arts, we've talked about people being kind of leaving a legacy that is important, especially for our youth. Something else that he did that was amazing. And even in his like stardom, kind of talking about conversations around, well, what next? What will Black Panther look like in the future? Will it involve even more powerful Black women and men? And how some folks, I was talking to a white male the other day, him saying that with his son being so young, the first superhero that he like relates to or connects to is Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther. So that's really started some awesome conversations. It also naturally also has opened up conversations about health and about colon health and kind of prostate health, especially for Black men. The statistics have started to roll out about how we're at higher rates for that disparity amongst a host of others, and how it's important to not just get checked for colon cancer and other cancers like prostate, but to ensure that you know how to speak about this stuff with your provider, especially if your provider is white and they're not understanding why you're a little kind of pushy about getting screened early. Having that running in your family. I've done some research, and I think it's they want to get you tested 10 to 15 years before your family members, if you have a father or other folks who've been diagnosed 10 to 15 years before they were diagnosed.
mhm.
And depends, of course, that kind of changes as compared to the the stage that they were diagnosed in. So just want to make sure we keep that at the forefront of our minds, especially as men
Yeah.
and as black men, to make sure that we having conversations. Number one, going to the doctor, right? And then as we visit those appointments, making sure that we're talking about things like screenings for cancer. So I'm grateful for him, his struggle. People have even talked about his circle, how they were able to keep it under wraps. So, kind of having good people around you, because if you choose to keep certain things private, having family and friends that feel free, that feel like they can respect that. So
Yeah.
lots of good things have happened despite the tragedy.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, man. And I mean, it's just it, you just never know. And I know we're kind of at that age now where we have to really, your 20s you can wild out and you feel like you got some time to bounce back, but we're in our 30s and it's like, I know a lot of our listeners are men our age or around our age too. So we just got to make sure, like you said, we got to go to the doctor. We have to get those checkups. We have to, I don't know, a lot of times there's the fear of finding out.
Yeah.
And we might not say it because we don't want to seem that we might not want to just say it out loud, but maybe that could be something that's an unconscious decision that is keeping us away. So, and I'm talking to myself too, man. So I've been in Texas for about a year now, man. I got to find me a physician, get my physicals, get my checkups, and so thank you for sharing that, man. Because definitely we got to hold each other accountable, and definitely got to do a better job of just we can't help if we're not healthy, So
that's true.
We got to do our part, man. Because we live our lives not just for us, but for our family, our friends, our circles of influence, and we have no idea who's listening to, man. So, to all the men, all the women, just make sure we're taking care of ourselves, and even with us being outside, like remember, hey, COVID is still here. I know it looks tempting, but hey,
Stay
listen,
home.
we don't have there are no solutions yet except stay home when you got to go. Still wear your mask. I seen people doing wilding, man.
Over your nose too. I'm tired of people out there doing this. Like, no, what's that? Put it on your nose.
You just blowing boogers on your mask.
I saw a mask today and I loved it because as a therapist, I walk in the session and I got some folks that want to take it off, move it to the side. No, the mask said, leave it on while you're talking. That's what the mask said on top. And I was like, this is perfect. Wear a mask that says how to use the mask. Because people were like, what's the point in taking the mask down and talking to me? Get away. Stay away.
I want to be here right now because I'm scared.
Bro,
like
it's wild.
I have anxiety being 6 feet away from
there is a show, The Last Man on Earth, and I like watching this show.
Watch this.
Bro, Last Man on Earth is a show that's, I think it piloted with like 2014, 2013, somewhere around
Fox,
there.
Right?
I think it was Fox. I think it was.
Yeah.
And I watched that show. I'm like episode 3 or 4. I mean, season 3 or 4. I think I'm season 4. And like, this is like premonition is an understatement. Like there was some virus that wiped everybody out except a couple people. And the few folks they talk to, they have masks on, they see somebody cough, they freak out. It is weird. It is some weird stuff. And some of the one-liners from that show is like, this is weird. Like they showed, like they were like joking about how like the president had passed and then the first lady had passed and the secretary of state, like every person like down the line, so there was no one left to lead. So then it ends up being this one random dude, man. They call him Tandy. It's a funny show. It's a good show.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna check it out, man.
But what's on your feet though? What's on your feet?
Man, I think the last couple of episodes, you have done a very good job of lying to me. I mean this in like the most honest, vulnerable face possible. Because before we do these shows, man, we don't tell each other what we got. We'll check in and be like, hey, so heat check. What you got to do? Do I need to go deep in the cut or do I need to pull out my everyday? You know what I'm saying? You made it seem like you were gonna pull out some Sperry's the last couple of boat shoes, brother.
Come on.
You're like, it's just something slight. It's just like the Jordan Grape remix of all his best shoes fused into one. I think it's hard to get, but and I'm looking like I got some Nikes. So
Oh, get out of here.
you
You did
know,
the Holy Grail. Get out of here. You
you
did
know,
LeBron over and over, all the LeBrons. Get out of here. You be on this other stuff.
I don't know. You go into your collector bag, man. You go into some nice pieces. I'm like, oh, okay, good stuff. All right, well,
Okay, okay.
So you know, North Carolina boy, all day, every day.
Okay.
I'm country boy, love it. And there's one artist who has a deep space in my heart every day. When I would walk from downtown Gainesville to the University of Florida or skateboard or whatever I was doing, because
Okay.
that's what we do in Gainesville. I listened to this artist mixtape or album, but preferably the mixtape. So the Friday Night Lights,
Come
the all of
on.
those. So
Jaron, no.
you
Please
know,
don't do this. Don't do this, Jay. Don't do
uh,
this.
apparently he signed with Puma.
Don't do this. Don't you
And
dare do this.
might have
Don't
really
you dare. How
he might
dare
have released
you?
some artists, dreamers, and
How
so
dare you?
the dreamer on there, Dreamville dreamer, man. Listen, just a dollar in a dream, brother. Dollar in a dream.
Oh,
That's all I got. If it's about that cream, and I'm all up in that spot. And so, yeah, man.
I cannot believe you. I
I had to
cannot believe you.
do some things to get these things.
I
So
can't believe you.
make sure you see it in the background. Um, so here's the other pair, the other sneaker.
That's now you know I
Reveals. Oh, but hold on, wait. I just got the shorts. Oh.
this dude bought the shorts.
All right, that was the flex. That was the HBCU flex you were talking about. That was on the yard. It'd be like, I see you, brother.
I don't see nothing. That is
So yeah, man,
that is not cool. Because I can't find them. They got one color left. They trash. The color that's left is that color is.
That's the only one I wanted.
StockX maybe, I don't know. Like you,
yeah, they're hard, So dog. They released the Nintendo 64 Super Mario colorway yesterday. Kuzma had them on in the Lakers game.
wow,
Red, white, and blue. They're fire. They're fire.
gotta be.
They're fire. So I mean, I might try and find those. We'll see. I don't know. And again, we do sneakers because it's motivation for folks who weren't able to have it. These are promises we made to ourselves. When we got older, we were going to get the sneakers that we always wanted. We were going to do the thing that we need to do the right way, go to school, get our education, get financially sound, and
buy a couple sneakers.
So that's the only reason why we keep doing this sneaker thing, people.
And to flex, clearly.
And in hopes that one day, as we continue to grow in this podcast, they will just send us sneakers so I don't have to buy them anymore.
Now that we will review them if you want us to.
Yeah, listen, this will definitely become a sneaker podcast quicker.
Quarantine sneakers.
Hey, we'll record these things all day. Okay, this is gonna be a 3-hour podcast. We keep going on. What you got in the tub?
I have just one quick question: are they comfortable?
I don't know.
Come on, man.
I don't know.
Come on.
Bruh, listen, I have not worn these shoes yet.
Come on. That's not.
I don't know.
Whatever, bro. Get away from me, dog.
Where I'm gonna wear them, bro? To the kitchen?
Yes. I'm just upset. My shoes, my little raggedy shoes. I got on these ugly shoes.
Shut up.
In paying honor to, Brother Kobe. This is the Crazy 8 Rasta colorway of, when Kobe was with Adidas. This before he flipped over to Nike. The 8 right there. Just stupid thing. That's all I got.
BS I be talking about people. You hear that? There's something right. I just have the Kobe Crazy 8s to match my Army fatigue quarantine snacks. Like what? Who has? First off, it's hard to find Kobe Adidas anything.
Fair.
And you got the red green, like, bro, leave me alone. I don't want to hear this. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this. I remember seeing them shoes on feet in Gainesville, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah. They turn heads a little bit, but it ain't no J. Cole sneaker though.
Shut up. It's Kobe. It's the GOAT.
Fair. They
Kobe.
fair.
And R.I.P. Kobe Gianna. You know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
man,
yeah.
that sneaker is definitely a collector's
It is.
item for more reasons than one, man.
Fair.
You know,
Fair,
so,
bro. Fair.
hey,
Fair.
the stock price went up on those, brother.
It did. It did. I checked it, and they worth a little bit now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we have good relationships. We talked about how important it is for us to connect, right? To make sure that we're still staying sane. Good relationships with our sneakers. I try to keep them clean. You clearly don't wear yours.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Outside, because I can't go outside because I'm still quarantined.
and one of the few things we wanted to check in with today was uh, kind of like relationships, right? We're both over 30, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
um, sometimes I know that I feel the pressure to catch up, to catch up with somebody,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's like myself, my own ideas of me, like what I should be doing, where I should be. I should own a home by now. I got my car, should be paid off. My student loan should be gone by now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we were rapping about that a little bit earlier, man. You've been married for a couple years. I got an anniversary coming up in a week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, man,
Congrats.
what do we? Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Hanging in
Absolutely.
there. Doing my best, doing my very best.
Celebrate,
I promise.
celebrate,
I
and
got
continue.
A little surprise in store for us. It's gonna be nice. It's gonna be real,
All
real
right.
nice.
We're gonna revisit this next
Yeah,
podcast.
we will. We'll see how it goes.
Recap. Yeah.
See how it goes. But Jay, give me in one word. What
Yeah.
does it take um, to not succumb to all the pressures to be different, to be better, to social media? You talked about that earlier, like all that stuff. In one word, uh, what would you say? How do you survive as a 30-year-old, 30-plus-year-old in this world where you're supposed to be better or different than you are right now? What would you say?
One word, authenticity. And
Mm,
and that's because it's kind of like what you're saying, man. We're constantly having our attention pulled into what other people are doing, what we feel like we should be doing. That's given, by our environment, our circles of influence, people we might see as like relationship goals or whatever. All
yeah.
that's constant pressure, bro. And it gets back to like, but what makes me happy? What makes my partner happy? What makes us happy together?
True.
And if we kind of talked about it and touched on it when we talked about the entanglement issue with the entanglement situation
Yeah.
with the Smiths, and watching that, I saw authenticity in
Mm.
their relationship as a couple, and not everyone has to understand it.
Mhm.
They have to be the ones that understand it. It was interesting to see that thrown out there. It allowed us to speculate and have all kinds of questions and want to know
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Now we're like, what are y'all doing?
Hmm.
But watching them support one another how they want and need to be supported. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, I think people need to talk about that more.
True.
It's about your story. It's about your partner's story. The restore of your relationship. It's two stories becoming not one story,
Hmm.
but two stories where they entangle with one another,
Mm.
and you enjoy that entanglement.
Yes.
So it doesn't make you rely on the
No.
other person to make you happy.
Mhm.
You're working on your happiness, they're working on their happiness, and you're enjoying the happiness together.
Right.
Um,
An
but it's still,
entanglement, as it were. Understood.
yeah, and it's still a challenge because you do get things like, hey, about time to have babies, ain't it? It's like, we kind of chilling. We're enjoying buying sneakers. Can't do that. I don't even want the responsibility of a dog right now, bro. I'm like, I
Sure.
can't. and, and the way the world looking right now, I'm not sure I want to bring my kid in right now. I don't know.
Boy, it's been getting worse and worse.
But you know,
Yeah.
we're enjoying life right now. We're enjoying, you know, where we are in our career, and not everyone is at that same place and space. And
Yeah,
so we
yeah.
honor, you know, folks, you know, giving, you know, little hints and things and asking
Hmm.
questions.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, you know, not feeling like there's a pressure to have to and show up for approval of
Yeah,
what people think you should be
yeah,
doing. And
yeah,
so I'm, you know, we talk about this all the time in terms of
yeah.
relationships and with the brothers, and we got to bring in some of the other brothers too, just to have like
Yeah.
a
Different
check.
perspectives.
Yeah, man, this could definitely be a 6 hour
Yeah.
podcast just on this alone. But yeah, that's what I've learned so far, man. That's kind of what has grounded us, um,
Hmm.
and continues to ground us, especially through challenges like, you know, just COVID, 2020,
Yeah.
life, all that stuff, man. So,
Hmm.
how about yourself, though, bro? You know, you about
Oh
to
man.
celebrate an anniversary, so I know you're in that phase of just thinking and deep thought and you know all that good
Hmm.
stuff. So,
Hmm.
how about you,
Absolutely.
man?
First off, man, I want to say thanks, man. I always appreciate folks who are open to giving like their wisdom. And as I was speaking with a patient the other day, that kind of delineating wisdom from knowledge, right? Knowledge is kind of what you know. Wisdom is kind of how you use what you know through experience, right?
Mhm.
And you know, not a lot of folks are willing to share their wisdom about relationships, and whether it's because we're just busy or because we are kind of entangled, as it were, you know, like kind of caught up in kind of
Yeah.
the quotidian or everyday stuff. You know, I think it's important to take that wisdom you have and disseminate it, so that we don't keep making the same mistakes in relationships that, you know, our friends might have made or our parents, whomever, might have made. So appreciate that, man. And you know, I'm a person who, um, I'm always trying to learn something, for better or for worse. You know,
Hmm.
I'm always trying to learn something, um, and I think 2 years in, um, number one, 2 years for me has always been a milestone. 1 year is like cool, you know, but 2 years in, I think you really know, like you really see, you have seen the ugly, like, and not just from your partner. I'm talking about from yourself
About
too,
yourself,
right?
yeah,
Like you
yeah.
have really started to see, like, this is who I am in this relationship,
Hmm.
um, and and you start to really, I start to really have these questions, like, if I make it past the 2 year mark, like that means a lot, because I
Okay.
kind of give myself a 2 year deadline because I know I'm a slow processor. I know I'm the kind of dude where, like, it takes me a while to go from, like, I met you, I like you, I know who you really are. Do I still like you? I got to get up out of here. Or like that takes me a lot longer. I got some friends that take a week. That take
Yeah,
1 week for a lot of my friends.
yeah, yeah.
But for me, I'm
And,
a slow
and no
processor.
problem with them. And like
Yep.
you said, there's no judgment in that. You
No.
honor their story and their truth. You're just saying like you
No.
like you sort of process, and that's everyone. That's that authenticity
Exactly,
space you're talking
exactly.
about.
Knowing
I love
yourself, and I actually have always admired those friends, right? Because for them, right, it's they know enough about themselves and what they're compatible with, so that they
it.
can get in and get out quickly. Like
Yeah,
it's kind
yeah.
of like if you like, I don't like the taste of coffee. So every time me and my girl go somewhere, every time she offers me a sip of her coffee, I already know I'm not gonna really be feeling
Delicious.
this. If
I
it's
sip
black
my
coffee,
coffee.
man, don't.
Mm,
I
it's
like,
so good.
I
Can you
like
hear
my
it in my new
coffee.
mic? It's so good. The coffee's so good. Sorry, my bad.
I
Yeah.
like my coffee mostly milk and a
Ah,
dash of sugar, and
okay,
no,
okay.
and without coffee.
You like
I like
milk,
I like
milk
milkshakes.
featuring coffee. Okay, I got you.
I
I
like
got you.
milkshakes. I don't
Okay.
like coffee. I like milkshakes. So and
I
so
like
like, you know, like 2 years in, it's like it takes me a while to figure out, you know, this is a brand new experience. You know, I don't
yeah,
know. And so 2 years for me really feels important. And
nice.
so, you know, I like your word authenticity. I'd say that, like, some version of that is exactly kind of where I am right now. Like you said, questioning, like thinking of reflecting a lot right now.
Yeah.
And really, there was this really cool quote I saw that said, uh, we usually spend too much time in our relationships trying to change the wrong person. And
Wow.
I'm
Yeah.
all for that, because I know I'm guilty. I'm guilty. I've spent years with people and, like, trying to change them, and haven't done much work on trying to look at myself. I'm just grateful for my partner because there's space to explore that.
So I love that, man. And the I think that's been, I think a lot of, I'll speak from us and the brothers, like brothers, men, from our perspective, you kind of, that's so spot on to say we need to look at ourselves, not look at the other person. Because there's so, that when you're talking about like a relationship and a partnership long term, for this thing to work the way that it can and continue to work forever, it's a constant state of self-reflection
Yeah.
to unpack any insecurity, any limiting belief, self-doubt, whatever was put in little you to survive
Yep.
will show up in some way in your relationship.
Absolutely.
And if we don't take the time to self-reflect, unpack, and recognize that what served us as a defense mechanism as a child or as a teenager or as a young adult doesn't necessarily fit how I communicate, interact with my partner,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
then you're gonna, things are gonna, trigger you, and you're gonna be like, why did I do this? And you're gonna think it's they did it. No,
Yep.
it triggered something in you that is unresolved, that
Right.
breaks the ability to communicate properly, to form understanding, because now you're trying to prove you're right
Yep.
versus truth.
Yep. Yep.
And when you can get to a part where you recognize neither one of you is ever right or wrong, it's always navigating through misunderstanding or
Yeah.
navigating to a better understanding of their truth.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
once I realized it's not about being right or wrong, it's we got to figure out how to communicate and
Mhm.
delve deeper into how do we communicate better. So the stories, I want to know as much about her. She wants to know as much about me, and
Yeah.
understand I'll never understand her. So I'm
Yeah.
always in this constant state of trying to understand more. It's
Hmm.
dope. So we
Yeah.
do a lot of stuff, man, that I don't think a lot of people think to do in at our age. We have like this questions game. It's an app. It's like just questions. It's like $1 on like the app store or something like that.
Okay.
It's 900 random questions. We'll be riding in the car and be like, boop, hit a random question.
Hmm.
Turn the volume, just have like instrumental playing on the car or whatever. And we'll just go through a long car ride and just hit the random question. And you're
Huh.
just crazy. We'll get to the same question maybe, that we might have hit, maybe a year ago. And the answer is different because you're not the same person, the same space, the same
I like
headspace
this,
as you were a
man.
year
That's
ago.
dope.
There are cards out for, they're like icebreaker cards,
Yeah.
but they did one for couples. And so it's one on
Hmm.
intimacy. And it has different sections and different themes where you can
Hmm.
pull. It can be like random. It can be one about like how you love and show love.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like we'll do those. We back in the day when we were planning our wedding,
Hmm.
we were busy. Both of us were in grad school trying to figure out how we were going to, kind of set this time. And so we would do what we call wedding Wednesdays, where we couldn't block anything on Wednesday afternoon. And that was the one day of the week where we were going to talk about, just think whether it was the colors, all that stuff that goes with that. And so once we got married, we didn't want to lose that
Yep.
because time is just, if you don't schedule it, something takes up that time. So we
Yeah.
still do wedding Wednesdays. And so we'll do, we do dinner together, and we'll do something like that intimacy question deck that we talked about. We might
Hmm.
be, we might read a book or kind of answer something where it's always building, but we always create the space
Yeah.
to build on our relationship and being intentional after that 1 year honeymoon. I like you, but now
Hmm.
I love you. How do I fall and continue to fall more in love with you?
Yeah.
That more in love with you is the intentional time and effort that has to be agreed upon by both partners, I believe.
Hmm. Wow.
And if you don't do that, things get monotonous. You forget to date.
Yeah.
You forget to be the best version of yourself, for yourself, but also for your partner. All those things can kind of show up. And so the understanding that you have to create space and the relationships take work. This is the type of work. It's not the,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
we got to spend time together all the time. No, the relationship, the work that maybe needed to be done could be self-reflecting on yourself and
Facts.
getting the therapy you need so you can be the partner that can support your partner in their pursuit of their happiness. So it's, yeah, man. Didn't know we were gonna do that and go
Man,
there, but yeah, man.
those is
That's
gems. Those is gems. I
yeah, man.
mean, mm,
Mm, yeah, and we
mm,
don't. I'm not seeing a lot of us talk about it enough. I see women talk about it all the time.
it's true, bro.
I see, I just need we got to see more young men like us
Man,
talking about how we navigate
mm,
being in healthy relationships,
right.
how to be healthy enough to be in a relationship. And so um that's,
Mm,
I hope
man, mm,
yeah.
man, it's interesting. Like as a as a therapist, um, these I think I take for granted the amount of training and exposure to other people's lived experiences um, and just like the different ways in which I have access to healthy, as it were, like at least to what healthy look like
Yeah.
than other people have. And
Hmm.
to your point, I think it's important to make sure that we're talking about um, like if you ask me, like all of life is relationship.
Hmm.
So it's interesting how we don't get any like training or that stuff
Yeah.
on relationships, but that's what our entire life ends up being, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's really dope, man. I really appreciate the wisdom.
I know we kind of like, have stayed on this topic too, but you brought up something that I found very curious, and I've always wanted to kind of delve into you as a therapist and your experiences. So like I do a lot of work around storytelling, personal story development, and I've reaped a lot of benefits from being able to hear people's stories and hear the stories they want to share.
Right.
You delve in a space where sometimes you hear the stories that people don't want to share but need to share, and you also that gives you this space of seeing so many different truths. Like, and I know you kind of mentioned you take it for granted, but I've always wondered, like, I just it feels like that is a space that can probably be difficult to navigate at times, but also
Mm,
very rewarding in
mm.
seeing different lives,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
how does that, is it that
Um,
because you might plant a seed for some folks who have thought about becoming a therapist,
mm,
it might be, so your story, your experience, again, we never know who's listening, but I
right,
think what you
right,
do is so important and valuable. So
right.
I like how you talk about navigating as a therapist, and especially a black male therapist. There aren't many of you.
Man, you're right. They call me like a unicorn because we don't exist, especially psychologists, right?
Oh,
I was
okay.
talking
Okay.
to someone the other day who was giving me some stats, and I knew the stats were wrong, but don't get me started. Uh,
Question before
what's
we
up?
go. What's the difference between a therapist and a psychologist for those
Oh,
who don't
good
know?
point. Good point, man. So therapist is anyone who, so therapy is short for psychotherapy. And if we think about therapy, like in a lot of ways, we are more familiar with physical therapy, with um, occupational therapy, speech therapy, right? And the word therapy, I don't remember the denotation exactly, but it's kind of this intervention that is short term for
Mhm.
people to kind of come in and get something they need to improve themselves and then to be out, right?
Okay.
So like medication, they have some like medication therapies is how you'll hear that stuff work as well, right? I take ibuprofen as a therapy for a headache, and so the term therapy and the way I use it is like short for psychotherapy, which in psycho just means the psyche, the mind, the brain. So therapist would be anyone who, um, I mean, I guess in my field we talk about it as anyone who has gone through the training and is licensed to be able to like ethically provide mental health service. A
Okay.
licensed person who can ethically provide like mental health service, and that covers a wide range of professions. I'll spit off a few of them. I won't list them all. So my Apologies for folks who might be listening who have other licenses. But LPC, licensed professional clinician, or okay, I'm messing up already. LPC, LMHC, licensed mental health counselor. You've got LMFT, licensed marriage and family therapist. LCSW, licensed clinical social worker. And then you also have psychologists. And all the ones that I just mentioned, I think the general rule is that you end up doing 3 to 4 years, so like a master's degree, plus some extra work as far as getting hours to show that you can do this work. Psychologists historically have almost always had PhDs. The field of psychology at one time was the same, if not kind of overlapped a lot with the field of psychiatry, which is very similar to psychology. So again, talk therapy, helping folks through some of their issues, but having a PhD to do that. But psychiatry being the medical degree, right? So you get an MD in psychiatry. That means you can prescribe medication. And I believe, if I remember correctly, that psychology was birthed from psychiatry, especially during World War II or following World War II, especially around vocational psychology, helping folks get jobs as they return from the war. And it's evolved ever since. So when I say therapist, I mean all of those folks who provide some type of licensed mental health service. So a great question, man. But to your point question, it's a really weird job. Like I always think about how like our jobs overlap in some ways, and it is super weird, I'm sure, for you to walk into a room full of white folks and to say, in the most professional way possible, that Black Lives Matter, and here's why. Like being a Black, yes, exactly, and your privilege will get you punched. Right? How to find professional ways to communicate this stuff, and and in my job, I find that there is definitely the Black Lives Matter part that shows up, which I want to share some stuff on that in a moment. How that really, really got me down day before yesterday. But also there's the piece of how we diagnose folks. And as a therapist, one of the things that I have to stay aware of is that like all of us, myself included, have symptoms of almost every disorder that is out there. It's kind of like if you cough, right? That is a symptom of COVID, but it might not mean you have COVID, right? It's a constellation of issues. And so if I hear somebody say my name and I look and there's nobody there, then that might be kind of normal, right? Sometimes we hear things. But if I hear that all the time and I see people in front of me and, and I'm interacting with these delusions and these hallucinations, it's more likely that I have some serious mental illness. And I guess what I'm saying is like being in the space where I'm hoping to do this again in the future, but I once did a lot of diagnosis. Like folks would come to me to do some assessments and then get diagnosed with a mental health concern. That way they can get the right treatment. I was always kind of in the mire when it came to what are these diagnoses, what are the differences, which naturally makes me more aware of symptoms in general, of symptoms around me, of people I have. It's hard not to look around and say, there's some symptoms of that. But more importantly, it makes it hard to be a therapist and to be sitting with someone who's struggling with something. And then I also feel like, I'm struggling with the same thing, right? And so, and like I said, if I have symptoms of all the things, like I don't have enough symptoms to say, let's say that I'm clinically depressed, but after losing my dad, for instance, I felt sad. I didn't really, I think I ate too much, like things like that. So there are those symptoms that start to pop up, and then you naturally start to question yourself like, what do I do with this stuff? Like, what do I do? And sometimes it means seeking help, right? Sometimes a therapist needs a therapist naturally. And then sometimes it looks more like, doing what you suggest your patients do, right? That's one of the hardest things to do is like, I need more self-care. I took half a week off last week. I think like 6 days. I have not done that. Dog, I had, let's just say over the entire year that I've been in Nashville, which just ended like today, I took half of the days off they gave me in the past year, half. Wow. And when I looked at when I had the last week rolling up, I looked and I said, wow. And it's been a pandemic, right? Like not just the regular. And I'm like, and it was so bad that when I noticed it, there were not enough days left in that like fiscal year for me to take the rest of, so I lost days because
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been taking care of myself.
Yeah.
Um, so
Wow.
yeah, man, like it's kind of hard and weird to hold space, like you said, to see so many different types of people, so many different symptoms, seeing ways in which they play out in their relationships, ways in which they play out in their personal, intrapersonal relationship with yourself. To do all that stuff, to see all that stuff, and then to be like, who am I?
Yeah.
Like, how am I doing? Like, goodness, it's called transference. Um,
Transference.
yeah, just this idea that I pick up, that people pull stuff from me.
Uh-huh.
And that my job, the reason I'm the psychologist, I guess, in the room is that I have to have some awareness that is there.
Uh-huh.
Um, doesn't mean I have to be perfect or that it doesn't impact me at all. It just means that I'm aware of it and I kind of know, okay, Dennis, there's that, right? We're talking about someone else losing their father. You know, check in, make sure that you're aware of what's going on with you in this hour, right?
Man,
Um, yeah.
first, thank you for sharing that, man. There's so much wealth of information that you just shared that you just was like, this is what I do, and you just talk to like I'm so excited for you to be talking about these things, bro. And our first collaboration was the video that I produced for you on dispelling the
Sure.
myths why Black people don't go to therapy.
Yeah,
So,
you're right. You're
bro,
right.
like that relationship is a continuance of what we build on, because there's so many similarities where I'm like, man, like that's so interesting. That's so more people need to hear this. More people need to know that you exist and that this, that service exists. And so I just, I always want to continuously, make sure that I'm giving you your thanks. I know that is a very difficult job to have, and a very rewarding job at times too, man. And the way you navigate it and still provide space to outside of your 9 to 5. Be an advocate, be a speaker, be a trainer, be a brother, whether it's fraternal or
Yeah.
just in
Yeah.
general. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
do a lot for the community,
Mm.
and I don't want, I want to make sure I'm doing my part to let you know that we see you, we value you and what you contribute, and we appreciate the good that you're doing for everyone, man. So just thank you, man. And I'm glad we're talking about this. I'm glad this is a segment we can have on a podcast to put out to the world for people to know, man. So we're probably going to clip this, and you might have your part 2 of, the whole therapy conversation that we did on YouTube a while back,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You
That's a good
mentioned,
idea.
you mentioned transference.
Hmm.
Was that the term, transference?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It made me think, is there are like is that term, or is that specifically seen in therapy? Can this, we're talking about privilege, and we're continuously talking about Black Lives Matter and diversity and inclusion. Can we, as, I guess, given that race right now is at the forefront of all the conversations, and
Yeah.
a lot of our our employers or the people that we come in contact with are looking to Black people
Hmm.
to help or be the subject matter experts to fix race relations.
Yeah.
Is transference something that can happen to Black people? And if so, what does that look like? I don't know if this is a thing.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I was like, wow, can, like, all these conversations that I'm having at work around unconscious and conscious bias and privilege, and understanding what, when we say Black Lives Matter, what does that mean? Like,
Right.
am I experience trans? Because I know I feel the weight of something
Hmm.
always, and I'm feeling it more and more. And the employees that I work with and manage, they're saying the same thing. How do I show up and say I'm not okay? How do I show up and say I don't want to be this person that they're asking me to be, and I'm
Hmm.
tired, and I'm weary, and I don't know what to do with it. So with you, I've always respected the fact that you have the tools to navigate these types of things. So is that a thing? Is transference a thing that can happen within these D&I conversations? And if so, do you have any ideas or thoughts just on ways to navigate this new heightened challenge that a lot of us are facing?
Yeah. Um, I think that, you know, first of all, like to your question, yes, absolutely. Like transference is, I think we define transference as like just the action of transferring some emotion onto someone else.
Okay.
And so, and that can be really difficult, right? Number one, we see that happen, of course, in relationships, right? Like you said, the little you has a need that is unmet, and then the big you ends up putting that emotion on someone else. That is the act of transference.
Oh,
Of course, that can show up in D&I conversations as well, um, because these are places where people are like really like not aware oftentimes, right, of what's going on inside of them. And as a result, when I'm not aware of what's happening with me, then I end up, putting that stuff in places it doesn't belong. Um,
wow. Yeah.
I think that to your point, that this can also happen in those circles where, a black person says, hey, my life matters. And then a white person can somehow communicate that, well, what about my life, right? There goes
Uh,
the defensiveness, there goes the transferring of an emotion. Let's say it's an insecurity within myself, transferring that onto the speaker, onto the messenger who happens to be black, and saying something that's actually pretty rudimentary, right? Of course,
yeah.
Black Lives Matter. There's no question there.
Right. Right.
The issue is, how does that make your emotions transfer?
Mm,
And then there's something else, right? Where, to your point, folks end up transferring. There's something in our field called countertransference, where, as we expect transference to happen, where the patient's emotions come on to me. In your case, let's say the white person who's hearing the speech puts their emotions on you. But countertransference is when then in return, right, my emotions end up back on the patient. Where
wow.
I can take for instance, sometimes I am oftentimes seen as the dad, right? I had a supervisor that would say this, like, you're always somebody's parent, like, and if you're not, then you're lying to yourself. Like, you are
Wow.
dad, you are the boyfriend, you are the pastor, you are all the
Yeah.
things. Sometimes you're all the above, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and sometimes I'm moms because I'm nurturing, or sometimes, and for you it's the same thing, right? You find yourself in circles where the black man walks in and says, hey, black people are important, I'm going to show you why.
Mm,
Folks might, project onto you this idea that, like, you're this scary black man that's a thug.
right.
And of course they wouldn't say that. They might not even, feel that at the top, but they feel it down there somewhere,
Yeah.
right? and
Yeah.
and then for you, if you're treated like a thug, then there's a chance that you would respond like a thug. and
And punch
and
you in your face. Huh?
and this is why your privilege gets you punched, right?
Wow.
While we're on the topic, I wanted to
Oh,
just
this is
park
so
course.
good. This is so good. I'm sorry, man. I'm right now transference and counter transference. Make sure we
Yeah,
making sure people understand. And I didn't even know counter transference was a thing.
yeah.
Well, I've experienced. I've seen it happen. I've
Hmm.
done it. We've all
Yep,
done it.
yep.
And so it's just I don't know. I get excited to learn new information
Yeah.
where I can put a title or
Hmm.
to an emotion or a feeling that I
Yeah,
wasn't able to explain before. Um,
yeah.
and again, man, I'm just so amazed. I used to be like, oh yeah, this is what this is called. Go in depth and tell you about the logic behind it. That's dope, man. I love that, brother.
No,
Wow.
we were talking earlier about the bagels. I was at the store down the street getting bagels, and that's why this whole podcast came up. I got a feeling because of time we're not gonna be able to dig, but I want to
Uh,
at least throw this out there.
you know, we're at an
Well,
hour and six, which
so,
is the normal for us.
right,
We haven't
exactly.
talked in a couple of days,
So,
weeks. So yeah, we're good. We're good. Dude.
okay, cool.
Tell us about your bagel
So,
bites.
I'm at the store.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact,
Today, this morning.
today I was at the house and I was thinking, like, I was like, okay, me and Jay gotta meet. And we supposed to meet in like 10, 15 minutes. I can make it to the store, I can make it back. And I had it in my mind, I had already, I don't know if you ever do this, but sometimes you're like, I want something to eat, and then your brain starts fantasizing about it, and then
Yep.
you're like, oh, this gonna be good. Like,
Mhm.
I can't wait. So
Can't
I
wait.
get there and I'm
Yeah,
thinking, like we talked about it, I wanted my Nova Locks.
yeah.
I want
Oh,
one of
man,
my
nothing like
capers. I
a
wanted
box,
my,
bro.
my cream cheese.
Yeah, a
Uh,
little sprinkle of cake. Yeah.
it had some avocado, it had some red onions. I got rid of the red onions and tomatoes, and I
The
added
Nova
an
Lock
egg.
Deluxe, bro. Oh, with the
I,
extra
I
protein,
added
you
I
know, working
added the
out.
egg.
Oh,
I've been working out, added the egg.
bro, that's what
Man.
I'm about to get after this podcast recorded. We got, hey, listen,
It
ain't
was
nothing like
special.
some salmon on some bread on a Saturday. It was,
It was special. It was special. So I'm walking in, I'm like, cool. First thing, I walk in. Of course, I'm the only black person in the building except for the lady behind the counter making the sandwiches, but later for that.
uh,
Um, I got on my t-shirt and I got on my jeans. And I'm
uh,
like, okay, I'm walking in this joint and I see one thing I hate seeing, which is a line that ain't a line. Because as a black person, and again, this might be something white folks don't think about, but
Right.
as a black person, I hate walking into a restaurant and there's a line that is not a line.
Yep. Yep.
Because what it feels like is there's a social order that's been set up already that ain't got, and I'm walking into it like I always do. Right?
I love that you even talk. I don't want you to lose that thought, but even like we're this is an informational podcast for people who may not understand. As a black man navigating in America, because we can speak from America, understanding the systems and order of things have helped us to know how we can navigate and still be successful in our way. But wherever there's that, I feel you, man. Whenever there's that space of, I don't understand the order of things here, but I have to learn them quick.
I
have to think about how I take up this space.
Oh yeah.
To still get what I want.
Oh yeah.
But there's that added challenge, like you were saying. So, okay, go ahead. So just for people who don't know, for our women audience who may not know that this is an anytime I step outside, conversation and way of thinking, that's how we navigate. We're like,
that's true.
It's like, it's a scan. It's a constant social scan. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. Yes. Continue about these salmon bagels. Oh, so you're in the bagel shop.
Man, and I'm gonna find
no line.
There's no line. There's a quote. I hope I can find this thing. Okay, I'm gonna find it. Mahershala Ali had an amazing quote. I'm gonna find it about how the difference in black men and white men is that white men get to play offense. They're looking for ways to kind of get through things. Black men have to play defense. We got to always be aware of what's happening around us. We got to be able to kind of see which direction you're going. Got to see if you're gonna cut left or right. If you're gonna shoot. If you're gonna pull up. If you're gonna kind of do a step back. What have you. And not only do you have to play defense, you got to play it smooth. And I really liked his quote. And that's how I felt when I walked inside of this bagel shop. So walking in, line all over the place. And I'm looking, I'm like, okay, I can see it. It kind of looks like a little snake. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to go to the end of the snake. Of course, the end of the snake is all the way back and the door all the way over here. So the next person walks in, they go to the left. And I'm like, oh, man. See?
You done messed up the order.
I heard him. Then the next person walks in, goes to the left too. I'm like, okay. So now they forming their own line over there. And I don't know how they feeling, but my chest getting hot. I can feel myself swelling up. I'm like, I'm glad I've been in the gym. I'm about to have to fight. I'm about to have to fight over my locks. I ain't got a lot of time. I got a meeting. I'm late for a meeting. And I'm thinking, okay, well, how many white people am I gonna have to at least converse with? Let's leave it there in order to get my locks and my cables, right? I told you. That's all I want. That's all I want. And so I end up, going in there, and they walk in, and then I see an older guy walk in, and he's kind of next to me, and I'm like, okay, well, what I'm gonna do is when the line starts to move, I'm gonna step up, and I ain't step up a little bit, I stepped up a lot. Like y'all see me. This
is me injecting. I'm taking space.
So yeah, we were at we had some technical difficulties. So thanks for hanging in there with us. I think I was at the part of the story where I was in the bagel shop and I took 2 big steps forward, right? Like I said, I felt my chest kind of swell up a little bit. My point was that I am here in this space. And it's important, like I said, because, folks feel like, I felt like folks needed to see me, like to see that I exist, that I was going to get my locks and my bagel this morning.
And you're in line, like,
and again, it's not a regular line, because in a regular line, I still feel that, but it's not exactly the same, right? It's like this is a little, and it's kind of like a group now. So anyway, I go up, and then the next lady before, it's interesting, right? The next guy makes his order, what guy in front of him makes his order, moves on, and before the lady can call me up, I go ahead and step up, because what I'm communicating is like, it's my turn next, no matter what these white people behind me think. Now, what's interesting is this all happening in my head, right? Who knows what they're thinking? They could think I'm not there. They could think that like it's kind of easy going. I'm just chilling today. Again, like this is kind of what privilege is, right? The idea that I don't have to think about these things. In a previous episode, I talked about if I walk to the refrigerator, I don't think about my legs carrying me there, and that is my privilege of being able-bodied. where some
Right.
folks who may not have the facility, the full facility, faculty of their limbs, might not be able to do it so easily and so simply, right?
Right. Right.
Maybe a process. My friend was talking to me yesterday about like how people who are disabled, um, how the world is not conducive to their concept of time. And I was like, the
Right.
time? He was like,
Yeah.
yeah, like, it may take me longer to get to my car, to get to an appointment, but the
Yeah.
world is not conducive to that. It's not created for really like my success in that way. And I was like,
Right.
wow, like
Right.
that's a
That's true.
really what a cool way of seeing it, man. But
Hmm.
anyway, I got up, I placed the order for my bagel. The dude had walked, one of the dudes who had kind of cut line inadvertently, older white guy walked in. He placed his order, but he was just getting some regular bagels. So they threw his and he leapfrogged me. And I felt a little weird, but I noticed that the younger white folks in the line didn't really care. They were like, okay, old dude can go ahead. He got his bagels and get out of here. So I was like, maybe I need to chill. But I definitely felt like your privilege can get you punched if you get up in front of me and you act up.
If one more person.
One more person. If it one more person that walked in front of me, I would have had to say something. And in these COVID times, I felt the same way. When I'm running and I see a white person is coming toward me, the
Uh-huh.
only reason why I get off the sidewalk is because I don't want to catch your germs. But I'm letting you know right now that if it weren't COVID times, I would be like, hey, you need to move to the left too.
Yeah.
Because in
Yeah.
my mind, what's running through here is Emmett Till, right? And I'm
Yeah.
thinking like,
Like I have to be the one that gets off the
yeah,
sidewalk. Yeah.
I shouldn't have to do that. I
No.
should not have to do that. I should be
Yeah.
able to. And last thing, man, is that I talked about having a conversation last week with a white woman who we were talking about the whole she was going off about Antifa and how like she can't understand why the buildings are being destroyed and all this stuff and I'm just like and her take home message was if you're a criminal, number one, you shouldn't be a criminal. And okay, that's fine. But number two,
Okay.
if you're a criminal and you're being, accosted or whatever by the police, don't resist because if you resist, you she didn't say deserve to die, but it was kind of like that message.
That just yeah.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
then mentioning she mentioned an analog to like, well, I have a son who does some stuff and like had a nice car and in that car, like he's never had any issues. Like, he's had some issues, but he never had issues around violence with the police officers. And I'm thinking like, what about the fact that like that is not the same when a person who feels confident that if they comply, they'll be allowed to leave. Whereas a person like me, I'm not very combative. Um, it might be my privilege of being a larger black man where I don't have to be combative, but it's this
Hmm.
idea that like, man, like being pulled over, I'm already afraid that I might not make it out because Ahmad didn't make it out, because
Right.
Brianna didn't make it out, and they
Right.
weren't doing illegal stuff, right? And the list goes on and on and on and on. It's just, um, and even at the worst of
Hmm.
criminals like the guy in Kenosha, this is a great example of times in which we see criminals who don't deserve to die and who are not killed.
Hmm.
um, so why does that rule only apply when you're white with an AR-15 and not when you're black with loose cigarettes?
Bruh.
Um,
And the idea, I mean, yeah, that what you're saying is so good and so needed, and these discussions are so important because what you're explaining too, I'm thinking there's also a seed there that says that the police are perfect and that they can't have criminal intent. They can't have bias and they can't be racist and they can't be wrong. And the idea of resisting, the historical aspect of there has to there has to be trust there. And again, we always talk about this. We're not saying all police are bad because they're not. The majority are inherently good. You know what I'm saying? And we want the same respect. We want the same thought that if they're inherently good, me being black is inherently good as well. And what we saw with Kenosha is it's not based off of your position. It was based off of your skin color.
yes,
We
yes,
saw police officers wave as the guy was turning himself in. This young 17-year-old white boy had just murdered 2 people, shot another guy as well. Took
Yeah.
almost his whole left arm off.
Bro.
No
Bro.
fear. And these are snap judgments based off of upbringing, based upon socialization, based off of the things that have been important to you, based off the idea of white supremacy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it may show up differently, but over decades, over hundreds of years, it's showing itself in different ways.
It is.
And this is where the challenge is. I don't know how white supremacy is going to show up today in my life.
That's true.
But I have to prepare for it and be prepared for it because somehow I could still be seen as criminal.
That's true.
And so for this, and the privilege getting your punch thing too, privilege will have you in spaces that will have you thinking you're right and you're completely wrong.
Bro.
And so everybody loses in this space. So if we're not talking about having the needed conversations on this concept of white supremacy, this concept, this idea, not a truth.
Yeah.
And where it comes from and where it buries itself and where it has systemically allowed the advancement of hurtful, harmful actions, including death. And for decades and hundreds of years, it was legally supported.
Yeah, of course.
That's what we have to because we now have the right to vote, just because our parents lived in segregation and desegregation, just because, President Obama was a black man and the presidency does not mean that all the ills of the system still don't show up some way. And that's where we are right now. We are seeing very blatant, y'all aren't talking about white supremacy. I used to hate saying the word white, anything around people or in public because it felt like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't say that. And now I'm to the point now, no, we have to get comfortable saying
that's real.
White supremacy and racism, because to get to a better place where it's no longer an uncomfortable conversation, we got to go right to the problem. The concept of white supremacy is what this country was built on. And if we're not talking about how we dismantle that idea, and it's a book in the background, How to Be an Anti-Racist, you can't just say, I'm by Ibram Kendi, he wrote about, great guy, get the book. He also had one stamp from the beginning that he wrote. He was at UF, great guy. If we're not talking about how to be an anti-racist, that's understanding where these racist thoughts came from and dismantling them to get to a space of equity where everyone is on the same playing field, not one race in any capacity seen as supreme. We are going to continue to have these issues, but some of these conversations, we can't always be the ones saying, hey, y'all, get your stuff together, because until y'all do, our black bodies are the expense. James Baldwin talked about, my father talked about progress. My grandfather talked about progress. I'm tired of waiting for progress. We're having the same conversations with the same challenges. And it's because we're not talking about the source. The idea of white supremacy allowed our forefathers to write, all men were created equal, and it not mean all men were created equal.
Man, and so to your point, I think, when I hear these arguments about buildings and land and destruction of things, and I know I've said this before, I don't know if I've said it on this platform, but people should be grateful that Black folks are only some, and it ain't always Black folks, but that people who are outraged about injustice, especially around racial injustice, that they're only destroying buildings, that they're only looting. In the past, were looting. I feel like that's letting folks off really, really good. And that's why I think it's important that we understand that, if you ain't aware of your privilege, you deserve these hands. Now you might not get them, but you deserve these hands. People,
Because essentially you're punching other people in the face when
bro,
you show up in that extreme privilege, because you don't care. You don't care how you hurt and
yeah,
harm someone else because you haven't had to think about it.
they haven't, and that's another way I define privilege, man. Is that, like I said, I don't have to think about it. I don't have to
Mhm.
cross my mind. I can go all day, all week, all year. An example I used to always give is that, if I'm walking from Target or Walmart at 11 o'clock p.m., I ain't worried. I ain't thinking about it. I'm
Yeah,
just walking to the car going home. But
because
I have
people
yet
scared of us.
I have yet to meet a woman who has shared with me the same sentiment around
Right,
walking to their car at 11 p.m. to a Walmart, to a parking lot that's dark in the back.
right,
There's
right.
at least something internal, if not a way external, that they are preparing. And I'm
Hmm.
like, and because I don't have to think about that, therein lies my privilege. So
Hmm.
it is the onus, and if the system were created in a way, and there are systems that are created in a way to oppress the people who are disabled, people who are uh, identify as Jewish, people who identify as LGBTQ, people who identify in other ways.
Hmm.
Um, and if I am a part, when I am a part of that oppression, it is my responsibility to do something.
Right,
And
right.
it's not their responsibility to tell me why, why not using certain colloquialisms when I refer to people who don't identify as heterosexual is not okay. It's my job to get educated on things like that.
Right,
And I
right.
think that, but again, I always go back to that idea that when these problems um, include white men, that is when these problems are um, like most paid, when they start to become a problem for the nation.
Hmm.
When the trans community involves white men to female, male to female um, transitions, then that's when it becomes an issue for the nation. When white men are starting to come out, that's when LGBTQ populations start to get more of a spotlight. But white men can't ever be black. And
Hmm.
so my worry is that the issues that we have
Hmm.
when it comes to our blackness may not get the necessary attention unless things are destroyed, unless people find it's interesting. People are talking about buildings being destroyed now, and I'm like, huh. And that means you're at least thinking about whether or not Black Lives Matter. You weren't thinking about this before people started looting Target.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
so you might not like that there's property being destroyed, but you're thinking about it.
Yeah, and property doesn't equate people.
No.
Like even in the defending of property does not give you the right to murder a person. You know what I'm saying? And
Precisely.
so when we're talking about, do Black Lives Matter? It's like, why are we,
Why?
and why are we talking about buildings? Why are we talking about statues? Like, is this really what we're talking about? Why aren't we
We're
talking
not. We're
about
not. We're not.
dismantling the systems that gets us to, we don't have to have these conversations anymore, but it's easier to do it this way
Bro.
and put the blame and get defensive and not have to do the work and lose some privilege.
Mm-hmm.
There's a quote that says, I don't know who said it or where I heard it or I just read it, but it stuck with me. When you live in spaces of extreme privilege, equity feels like oppression.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
it, I'm seeing, everyone's on their journey of getting to a space of understanding and their D&I journey. And some people don't want
Yeah.
equality. Some people
No.
are enjoying the fact that they don't have to think about this stuff.
True.
But it's just, if everyone understood that we all have a part to play to get to the same goal, where we don't have to think about these things like in this totality, this is a fight that we should not be fighting still.
Yeah.
It's just, is it self-preservation?
Yes.
Is that truly what it is? Like,
Yes.
did you not know that was the term for why it's so hard for you to understand privileges there and you not want to be an ally for those to get to that space of
Oh yeah.
equity?
Oh yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
then you sit with, isn't there some form of guilt or thought or feeling that my privilege got me here
Mm-hmm.
and Or I don't know.
Yeah,
I can never, I don't know what that feels like to
right, exactly. And that's really important, right? Is that privileged folks don't know what it feels like. I don't say privileged folks. White men don't know what it feels like to endure a lifetime of oppression. And I had this conversation with someone else recently, which was really rich. It was a white male, and he was saying, like, I don't know what it feels like to like walk into spaces and not be welcome, or walk into spaces where everybody in the room doesn't look like me or want to be like me, right?
yeah,
Like that's just his reality. And I'm thinking, and I don't know how it is to walk into spaces where that is the case. This is
yeah.
why I went to Morehouse College, right?
That's
Because
why I said it's
other
only I
people,
went to HBC.
that's why I went to HBCU, man, because
Yeah.
that's the only space I could find where it's like, hey, like other people are on the same stuff I'm on. Like they understand what it's like. Where every other college we're gonna walk into, like when I walk on the UF's campus, as awesome an experience that was. The
Mhm.
vast majority of my class, I was the only. I think I might have been the only black male to graduate from that program at that time, and probably to date, right?
Wow.
Um, and I know I was the only male, at least in my cohort. And the next cohort had one male, and the next cohort had one male. And it's
Mhm,
like,
mhm.
I know my field is one in which, vast majority of people here are white women. But goodness gracious, like when you live in a nation where that is your reality on a daily basis, and then you live in a place where this is what I was saying earlier about Trump is America, that sometimes we find that like people will align themselves with beliefs, but with beliefs that are, pretty heinous. Especially for folks like us, right? That have outcomes that might be pretty disgusting for people of color, for women, but still to vote for someone like that. To me, what that communicates is that there are parts of at least parts of our president that people will really connect with. And
Yeah,
I don't know what that feels like, but I can imagine as a white man who kind of is used to getting his way,
yeah.
that like that
Before
might connect with people.
before we jump, there was another technical glitch
Yeah.
where your audio came back in when you were talking about the president.
Hmm.
So, in case it wasn't caught, because I couldn't hear it through Anchor as well,
Okay.
can you do that segue from privilege to the president so we can go through that just in case?
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. I think my point there was just that, when I was conversing with a white male recently, he was saying he doesn't know what it feels like to to walk into spaces where he is not at least revered, admired, like folks want to be like him. And
Mhm.
mostly the people in the room are like him. They look like him.
Okay.
And how I have the opposite experience. Most of the spaces I walk into, most of the spaces you walk into, spaces where, we're the only black person, and
Right.
then there's a cascade of issues with that. Um, and I think that because this white male I was speaking with, he was saying like, he's so used to that. He's used to kind of having his way, used to being admired. I think that is one way in which kind of Trump represents a large component of America.
Yeah.
Those white men who are used to having things their way, are used to being seen as the most powerful person before they speak a word,
Mhm.
are used to systems that support them, right, and support their ideologies.
Mhm.
So, kind of to your point earlier, like any threat or any change in that system is perceived as a threat to
Mhm.
their power, to their money, to their success, to their identity, even, right? And what's interesting, I think, is their like these potential threats to their identity clash directly with threats to our identity as humans. So here we are in this, I think it can be seen as like a proverbial identity crisis that the United
Yeah.
States is facing. How to have
Powerful.
um, conflicting identities exist in the same space. In psychology, I know I've mentioned this term before, but we call that a dialectic, right? Having two separate emotions, two conflicting emotions in the same space. And yet, I heard a quote last week that said that is a definition of adulthood. It's being able to manage two different emotions at the same time.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah. Man, that's powerful because I mean, and it is it's two different realities, man. It's two different sides, essentially the same coin, the human experience, and one of the things that I value most about my time in Gainesville and through my program is meeting, a really good friend, and he's my brother, Brandon,
Yeah.
white guy. We connected through storytelling, built self-narrate together, and continued to stay in constant conversation around really deep like challenges, like I want to understand what it feels like, for him. And as he navigates, 'cause one thing, he definitely tries his best to do the work needed to understand his privilege, understand societal norms and how they affect other people. And he's also, mentioned how to navigate, how he's constantly trying to navigate the space of being. And we've had a conversation on YouTube from I think a couple of years back, where he was kind of conflicted. He was like, I don't this feeling of guilt, and how do I navigate that? And I've never had this with a lot of my family and friends. I've definitely not had it with a black guy, but he appreciates, and I appreciate our friendship and ability to talk about and talk through those things, because I've never had the in-depth conversations with another white person like I've had with him. And we have been able to have healing from those conversations where he might have felt guilt. I would ask him, have you thought about the ways that you have created a space to uplift and raise other people and people of color, their voices and ability to show up and have a voice? And so giving yourself grace when you're working in the race. I'm spitting bars, man.
Bars!
Every now and then, Dreamville, throw it out there. But on a serious note, but yeah, like we all can let go of these thoughts and feelings that can cause us harm if we are doing the work. And it was very refreshing to hear someone trying and continuing to try and understand it. And us being able to talk that through from a black man to a white man and a white man to a black man to form better understanding. And so even when you look at how we work within self-narrate and the work that he does with music GMV and other things, we're always trying to identify, are all the voices in the room? Am I asking these questions from my perspective? Or am I asking these questions the way that they would like to be asked? Is it allowing for their authentic stories to come out? Am I the person talking, or am I creating a platform for them to talk and tell their story? And so he, for me, has been the model of what it looks like to, when you mention, a white male can never be black, but can recognize and honor that difference and be an ally for equity. He has been that space to let me know it can happen. It can. There are people who want to hold those truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal. And that gave me hope. And I don't think he ever knew how much we needed to hear that exists. When people are saying, well, why is Black Lives Matter so, like, they're equating that to protesters and the burning of buildings. And we're not even talking about, can you just say that our life matters without it being brought into you being centered again to say, well, all lives matter. We understand that. It's a lot of burning buildings, but right now we're focused on this burning building. That is, can we put this fire out so we can continue to put the rest of the fires out? Facts. But if we don't talk about what the fire is, houses will keep burning. Man, okay, boy, this podcast has this has been a deep one, man. I don't even think we're hitting all the some of the things that we're going to talk about, but we let it go where it goes.
That's rich, man. I'm grateful. I think we've got plenty. We got to talk about voting in the future.
Yes.
I want us to talk about hashtag Joe Biden, Kamala Harris.
HBCU grad.
Heck yeah. Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulties again. This is going to be a great time in editing history. Thank you, Dr. I Live Mighty, for your hard work. But Breonna Taylor,
You owe me a bagel lox
I owe
with
you,
with an egg,
man. I'll
brother.
send you a whole salmon.
Did you get your? Okay.
Oh yeah.
We'll get to that. Breonna Taylor.
Breonna Taylor.
Yeah.
Say her name, Breonna
Yes.
Taylor. Say her name.
Breonna Taylor. In my good microphone, Breonna Taylor.
Oh wow.
No arrests have been made.
None. Somehow, no one's been arrested. But Breonna Taylor said her name. We will talk about privilege and oppression until we are blue in the face, or at least until we have started to dismantle these systems that have been placed for Black folks to continue to be oppressed. Jaron, I think we're done.
I think so too, bro. I think that this was a heavy episode. I think it was needed. We had a different approach that we thought we were going to take. We touched on a few topics, man, but I think we had to dig a little bit deeper, man. And I'm looking at the stuff that we didn't cover, and that'll definitely be a whole nother podcast. Again, for our listeners, this podcast was designed specifically originally to help us kind of get through navigating the quarantine, being in the space for mental health, personal development, from a cultural context. It has evolved to continue to expand that reach where we want to stay authentic and talk to our brothers and sisters to navigate space, but you're all our brothers and sisters. So when we say that, we don't want to feel like if you're not Black, you can't listen to the podcast. If you're not a guy, you can't listen to the podcast. We're just saying that you're listening with the ear of, we are putting this for more understanding. So these are the conversations that we would typically have on a phone call, on a FaceTime. And we found that someone may find value. So if you're a white man or woman listening to this podcast, and some of it can be a little uneasy to hear, know that we are intentional, knowing that you are hearing it, and it's with the hope that you form understanding of the conversations that we have to have, the way we navigate these spaces as Black men and as Black people. But we honor those who are doing the hard work of self-reflecting and creating spaces of equity for all, because we're doing the same thing. We understand and recognize our gender privilege, our diverse ability privilege, and we are checking that too. So though right now we are focused on race, because race is where we need to have the important conversations that have not been had, in hopes that we don't have to have them longer, so we can go and have better topics, not better topics, but other topics other than focusing on race so much. But right now, this is something that's needed. And so we're trying to provide that to the world. So the QSP will continue to evolve to what the need is at the time for us, and what we think might be the need for the world. So we also want you all to be active and engaged. If there are things you want us to talk about, if there are things that you're struggling with navigating in those spaces, we like to explore those things. We're natural researchers, practitioners. We get off of providing a service. And so we want to continue to provide a service for those who are listening. So please let us know, like, subscribe, share our podcast. Everyone's getting a podcast, which I'm loving to hear. There's more voices, but help us so people know that we exist. I'm just grateful and thankful for the ability to have a conversation with you, man. I love what we're doing. I think that people love what we're doing. We've gotten great feedback. If y'all want to be featured, if you have clothes,
I'll let us. We love to wear clothes.
We love to wear clothes. Hey, you got sneakers, bro? If you got sneakers, you want to send us? If you're a sneaker company, we actively accept endorsements.
We do.
Nike, I liked your Kaepernick campaign. I will. Look, my whole back wall would just be a bunch of Nike checks. Man, I'm just saying,
Man, if John Morant, if you come up with a sneaker soon, I know you got that Rookie of the Year. You wore those ones. Send us some. Feel free.
Just send us some. No
LeBron, we saw your new sneakers. They're nice. I know you're watching. Brian. I know you watching, Brian.
Bro, listen, I'm already your doggone ambassador unofficially. So just stop making me pay for them, brother. Just please.
Look, Brian. MJ, we saw the new ones coming out. 34s a fire.
Oh my
35s. Come
god.
on. Come on.
Okay. But yeah,
Pull
so
up.
just saying,
Hell, at this point, Kawhi, we'll take them. Okay, we'll take the Kawhi ones. We'll
oh
take Giannis ones.
yeah, you can wear the Kawhi. I'll take the Giannis. Listen, right now
I'll
I'm
wear the claws.
Lakers.
I'll wear the
Ooh,
claws.
I'm a LeBron fan. That's like T'Challa Killmonger right now, brother. Yeah, Kawhi.
Man, find us on let me see, on YouTube at Quarantine Snacks
Mm-hmm,
Podcast. Find us on Facebook at
mm-hmm,
Quarantine Snacks Podcast.
mm-hmm,
Find us on IG at Quarantine Snacks Podcast.
mm-hmm,
Find us on Twitter at the QSP.
mm-hmm.
Find us at Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Anchor and everywhere else you can find a podcast at Quarantine Snacks Podcast. Look out for our apparel.
Yep.
Yeah, keep your eyes open. Might have glasses soon.
Oh, hey, glasses. Oh,
Maybe some
okay.
socks. We
Oh,
got some
hey.
more
All right.
ideas coming.
Oh, okay. Let me see. All right, good stuff. Good stuff. We got some
Until,
stuff in the works, man. Got some stuff in the
until
works.
next time, this is Dr. Socks.
And Dr. Jones.
Keep snacking, folks.
Peace.